remember calling my dad and I said, Dad, I'm going to quit. This is the first 20 minutes of the first day. All these things kind of lead you to the right place. You never know. I mean, sometimes you have to go with your gut. There's ups and downs, but there's always a lesson in it and there's always a reason for it. And it makes you better. Even the losses make you better. It's not about getting the best deal always. It's about getting a deal where everyone feels like they win.
Welcome to the Sinclair podcast, where we share real-world experiences, wisdom, and the honest struggles of entrepreneurs to help you navigate and scale your business with confidence. Jeremy, really appreciate you coming on the podcast, man. It means a lot, and I'm looking forward to this one.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. So real quick, I mean, you and I met, I'll tell you the backstory from my side. I'm driving to Florida. I got my dog in the back of the SUV. I got nothing but 22 hours to burn. And I listened to you. It was a podcast from SKUcast, industry-focused podcast. And your story was just, it hit me. It impacted me. You're talking about e-com, how you're servicing a new buyer. And I think that week when I got there, I'm just like, LinkedIn message, dude, you're doing great work. The industry needs more of you. And I think at that point, the next day you're like, hey, we should chat. I'm working on something cool. So that started our relationship. And it's just, again, it's been a pleasure meeting you. I love all the work that you've done specifically for the branded merch industry. And again, you're a trailblazer. So I'm excited to pick through a little bit more of your background and sharing your story for everyone.
Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, speaking of background, let's talk about like born and raised. Tell me about life growing up for you.
Yeah, awesome. So I grew up in Englewood, New Jersey. So it's like a small suburb right outside of Manhattan. And I went to a modern Orthodox Jewish school. I grew up modern Orthodox, so somewhat religious growing up. And then I went to high school in Manhattan. So every day I would wake up around 5:30 in the morning, and I would get on the school bus, and I would get to school about 7 o'clock in the morning. It was a crazy system. And I was at school from like 7 to like 4 o'clock, and then I had basketball practice. So by the time I got home every day, it was around 7 o'clock at night. So my days in high school were insane. It was like really crazy. And I didn't know any different because my brother went to the same school, and that just, how I grew up. So that was like my life. And it was a dual curriculum. So it was like half English subjects and half Hebrew subjects. So it was, It was a lot of schooling as a high school kid. And I was never the best student. I was never a person who frankly cared so much about school. It was just what I was accustomed to, and that's just the life I had at that point. And yeah, my mom was a artist. She's a painter, a photographer, and my dad is an entrepreneur as well. So I think I have this like combination of the business side from my dad and really the artistic side from my mom, and it's kind of shown in a lot of different things in terms of my career. We'll go over it from filmmaking to entrepreneurship to. Even when I started my business, I was never the finance guy of the company. I was always the front of the house, the user experience, the design, the branding. So I had this aspect from my mom that I really connect with. And I don't know, I always, find things beautiful and try to build things. And I, from a very young age, really be into the creating and like the building things from the ground up. It was never really about money or frankly, even success. It wasn't about that. It was about, I have an idea or there's a problem. I want to see if I have the solution for it and then see how I can do it. So I've had this very lucky lifestyle of being an entrepreneur and being okay with the ups and the downs of it all.
Killer combination. You've got the art side and the business side. Can you tell me more about the business that your dad was in?
Yeah, my dad was one of the, I don't know if technically he was president or CEO, or he one of the executive roles at a company called Amazing Savings. So it was a big chain store of like very kind of like, at one point they had over 80 stores all over the Northeast. So he's very, successful entrepreneur, and just even how entrepreneurs think, it's very different. I remember my dad telling me a story. It's like one of the earliest memories. I was at a hotel and my dad was trying to get an upgrade at a hotel, and the guy behind the counter, I must have been like 7 or 8 at the time, legitimately. And the guy at the back of the counter said to him, no, sorry, sir, there's no upgrades available, no upgrades. And my dad looked at me and he whispered in my ear, he said, you hear that guy say no, he really means yes, he just doesn't know yet. And then fast forward 30 minutes, we're in the suite and we got this hotel room. And you just see how somebody thinks and how they navigate and how they move. Forget business. Like I wasn't necessarily upfront and personal with his business, but just seeing how he dealt with things in his, private life, everyday life, you start to get confidence that really anything is possible. And I think as an entrepreneur, you're creating something out of nothing. I mean, it is the craziest, scariest thing if you let it be. But if you kind of remove the fear and you get into that mindset that why not me? Why can't I do it? Anything is possible. So I just try to have the mentality whenever I'm building something, even if something seems like crazy, it's like, yeah, but somebody's going to do it. Why can't I be the one to do it?
That ability alone at a young age to be able to have that sort of messaging embedded is absolutely incredible. Mm-hmm. Who are other influences along the way, sort of as you got into your high school years and beyond? People that really impacted you from a business standpoint.
Yes. So my dad had a really good friend, Warren Struhl, and he's going to love being shout out here. But he is a lifelong entrepreneur, amazing person. I talk to him all the time. We bounce ideas off each other. But Warren Struhl he started a company called Popcorn Indiana. I'm sure if you've ever been to an airport, you see the red bag popcorn. It's all over the place. Very successful popcorn company. He started a company called Paper Direct. All these very successful guys. And he owns a company now called Goat Foods, which basically is a combination of licorice.com, chocolate.com, cashews.com, cupcakes.com. He basically owns a portfolio brands that are food related, and they all pretzels.com he owns. And so I've learned a lot from him. Jesse Itzler, I work with Jesse, and I don't know if your audience knows Jesse, but
I'm a huge fan, like diehard fan. Love him. Yeah. He's one of my favorite entrepreneurs.
Unbelievable person as well. Not even just business. Business is one thing, and I've been lucky enough to hear his stories about, how he got started and how he built things. I've seen it firsthand. There's some like kind of otherworldly stories that he has, but they're all true. And he's such a nice guy, such a mensch, like a real great person. And I worked with him for 3 years. So when I was about 25 years old, my brother, I would say my brother also, my older brother, started a company called Tipped Media. And basically the idea was very simple. He wanted to bring product placement into YouTube videos. So all these YouTube stars were getting millions of views and not making any money. And my brother had this key insight where he's like, these YouTube stars are getting more views than American Idol, but American Idol, Coca-Cola is paying American Idol millions of dollars to have Coca-Cola as a sponsor. Why aren't these YouTube stars making a lot of money? And he started calling all these YouTube stars and basically packaging up deals for like State Farm, Colgate, Verizon into the YouTube stars video and taking a piece of it. And then I joined him and I helped him grow that business. And then the idea expanded to, why are we stopping with just YouTube stars? Why don't we own the rights to major celebrities? Like, I can't say the names, but like the biggest rappers in the world and the biggest, Latin pop stars and people with like tens of millions of followers on social media. And what if we buy their rights to their social media? So we're basically buying these things that's like oil before oil is valuable. So like I would go to a big celebrity who now has around 44 million followers. And I got them when they had like 2 million followers. And I packaged the deal where I bought their rights where they couldn't do any promotional through Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, etc. It had to go through me. I was the representative. And I bought a lot of these rights. And ultimately, that company was bought by a publicly traded company when I was 25 years old.
No way.
And I did that with my brother, older brother David, and Jesse. And then we had another idea, the social media app, that ultimately failed. But I worked at Jesse's office for about 3 years. And I was just, I was kind of like a front row seat to somebody who's just doing it in the right way. And you kind of learn the right way to do things. And it's not about getting the best deal always. It's about getting a deal where everyone feels like they win. It's not like a win-win or like a win-lose. It's like everybody should walk away with deals feeling like they win and feeling like great about it. And I took that to heart and I said, this is how I want to live my life. Whatever I do in the future from this point, I want to make sure that I'm bringing a lot of people along with me to win.
How old were you at that point?
I was
like 25.
I was about 25 years old when I sold the company. So we started the company about a year earlier, so I was about 24. And by the time I left that company, Vouch, basically after the social media, after the companies got acquired, we started another company called Vouch, which ultimately didn't work. But we got hundreds of thousands of users. It was a social media app. We had a lot of celebrity partners as well. It just never took off meaningfully enough to take off as a social media app. And I was about 28 or so when I left that. And I learned a lot from that experience. The biggest thing is, and I'll take it on myself, as an entrepreneur, you have to have ego to some degree because you have to think that you have all the answers. But really, you got to have no ego at the same time because you have to learn from people and make sure that you're making the right business decisions. So it's this kind of balancing. And I don't think I had that when I was 26 or 27. So I'll take you a real life example of how I got to Swag from this point. When I was doing Vouch, I was the head of user experience. So I was designing every single thing about this app that I thought was important. And I lost sleep over every little detail about this app. What color each button was, what happens when I swipe this or that, what's the viral loop, all these things. I lost sleep over every little detail. And what happened is, after a year building this app, I launched it. And I realized all the things that I lost sleep over, no one else gave a shit about. It was like, wow. I couldn't care less about these things. It was these other 50 things that they were telling us about and saying, these are the things we really want. And it was that kind of aha moment of, I just wasted a year of my life building the wrong thing. And I told myself, and by the way, that's very hard to come back from. So if you have entrepreneurs listening, don't spend time building the wrong thing. Make sure you build the right thing. Listen to customers, talk to people, get out of your own head. You have an idea that's good. It might not be the right idea, and be open to getting feedback and changing your mind. But I didn't do that with Vouch, and I set myself up for failure because we were building the wrong thing for so long. It's kind of hard to catch up. With swag.com, I had the mentality of, I'm going to make sales from day one. It didn't matter if I thought I had the right idea or if I thought I had the right customer segment to go after. I'm going to let the customer base dictate it. And I found myself very wrong in the early days, but I caught it very quickly and I pivoted and I made sure I was right. For swag.com, I was 30 years old when I started that business. I thought the audience was the marketing teams. That was my initial gut feeling. Because marketing teams have big budgets. You can go after a small company of 5 employees and they can be spending hundreds of thousands of marketing. You see the return on investment, you get people to be hooked in. That was the idea. I started speaking to hundreds of marketing managers on LinkedIn. I would cold outreach all these people on LinkedIn and say, hey, can I buy 5 minutes of your time? I'd just love to pick your brain. I would go up and down WeWork hallways, knocking on doors, seeing if I could speak to marketing managers. And I realized everyone's going after the marketing manager. There's nothing that I'm going to be able to do that's going to cut through the noise. Who am I? Swag.com, coming soon landing page. No one knows us. We have no platform. We have nothing. Why are they going to work with us versus the other 23,000 promo distributors? They won't. But I noticed from those conversations, they kept passing us off. When they didn't want to speak to me, they would pass me off to the office manager. And the office manager would start talking to me. And I realized, wow, they don't have the biggest budgets. They have probably relatively small budgets, right? If they have a 10-person company, they're buying for 10 people. If they have a 100-person company, they're buying for 100 people. But they're the gateway into the company. They're the Trojan horse. Every shirt says swag.com on the inner label. That's 100 people knowing about our brand. They see the inherent viral social proof. Oh, my company uses this company. Let me use swag.com as well. So we started going all in on the office manager, and no one was doing it. I mean, now a lot of people do it, but 7, 8, 9 years ago when we started swag.com, no one was doing it. And we were able to get into the door, and we started racking up companies. And every single time they bought from us, they would basically tell all their coworkers to buy from us. And then now we have all the marketing teams and the sales teams and the different offices, but it started from the office manager. So I wouldn't have known that if I started building the platform how I initially did it with Vouch. And I made the mistake of being in a silo. I was so open-minded to hear people's reaction. And then I'm not going to go through everything, but there's a lot of other decisions about how the user experience works now that it wasn't the marketing team, it was the office manager. So we built it specifically for the office manager. We made it such a great experience. We didn't focus on any other divisions. We focused on the office manager, and it allowed us to really scale. And now we have, every department and every company and, winning RFPs and all of that stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, without that experience of building everything to perceived perfection, realizing it's not the right thing, you wouldn't have moved through swag.com so fast, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's incredible. You're obviously a SaaS guy, you're a tech guy. You knew that there was a huge amount of value in getting a kick-ass URL the moment you started. I've heard the story, but please tell the audience it's how much was swag.com and when did you start going after it? How long did you take to get it?
Yeah, so it took exactly dates. It took about 6-7 months, I believe, to negotiate it. The owner of the domain was trying to sell it for, I believe, to the wrong audience. He was trying to sell the word swag, as in swagger, as in Justin Bieber and cool and that, but not necessarily targeting the promo world. The name swag.com was very important to me from the very beginning. And it wasn't just about having the ego of being, I'm the founder of swag.com or even SEO. It really wasn't about SEO. I didn't value that so much. I probably should have valued it more, but I didn't. The true reason why I needed the name swag.com is I wanted to turn offline conversations to online purchasing. And if you're an impulse purchaser and you're on Facebook and you're browsing and you see a pair of shoes, those shoes look cool, let me buy it. You're never going to see an ad for swag and then just say, oh, let me put $4,000 on my credit card right now. It doesn't
No.
happen. There has to be a use case and a reason for it. So I wanted to get in front of people in January and February. And then when they're talking to their coworkers and their boss and they're saying, hey, I need some swag. Oh, swag.com, type directly into the browser in November. So we had to stay top of mind. That was the main reason. I wanted to get in front of them as cheaply as possible, whether it's a prospecting ad or a retargeting ad, frankly, and then stay on top of their mind. So ultimately they type us into the browser, just like I'm sure you never clicked on an Amazon ad. You probably type directly Amazon.com because it's inherent in your mind. So I wanted to get that mindset. It took us about 7 months to negotiate the price down to about close to $200,000. I didn't have that money at the time. So we negotiated a deal with the owner where they would get, a percentage of our company. We would then be able to purchase it for $200,000 over the course of a 2-year period. We started to make money from day one, had no money in the business at all. I put about $20,000 of my own money. My co-founder, Josh, did the same. That was our startup capital. And we made enough sales in the early days to justify raising some money to acquire the name within the first year. But I say a lot of times people have a name in mind. They feel like, oh, it's too expensive. There's ways around it. You could work the system. You could, give some equity, or, nowadays it's very common to do licensing agreements with domain, like rent the domain for, a month-to-month period. So things have changed a lot in the last 9 years, but at the time they didn't really have that licensing or renting. We kind of had to invent that from the start.
Yeah, and I mean that's a product of your tenacity too and creativity to say, hey, like I'm going to take that no and let's find a new way to get this.
Mm-hmm.
And you shaved off $1 million, but you made it work financially. So, talk about why your partner. Had you guys done business together before, outside of being friends? How did that all transpire?
Yeah, so I've been friends with Josh, my co-founder, in college. We were good friends, and then after college, people lose track. You don't really hang out with the same people always. And we were going to a mutual friend's bachelor party. And it was right before I obviously started Swag. We didn't start Swag yet. I was thinking about it, but not really, not in a serious way. And we were talking, we were running. I remember we were running through like the hills, like the mountains. And he was buying domain names at the time. That was like his thing. He was buying domain names and flipping it. I never even heard of this industry. And he said to me, if you ever have a domain name that you think is good, send it to me and I'll look into it. Maybe if I purchase it, I'll kick you back some. So it's just like a casual conversation.
Cool.
The next day, I come across swag.com and I reach out to him and say, hey, what do you think this is worth? Because he knew all the comps. And then it got me thinking, the more I was talking to him, like, this is actually could be a great business. And then I was trying to learn more about his skill set. And he had an accounting background. And I was more of the user experience, design, CEO. And it was like, we're good friends. We hit it off. We, very different skill sets. And I would always recommend your audience, don't go in business with it's kind of hard to go in business with your friends because usually friend circles have very similar backgrounds. And if they have similar backgrounds, then you're kind of like stepping on each other's toes. It was a unique kind of friendship where we had such different business skill sets. Like he didn't want anything to do with the front of the house. He didn't want anything to do with the brand, the user experience, the marketing, the strategy at all. He was completely operations, dealing with suppliers, dealing with the finances, the books. That's what he enjoyed doing.
But so complementary.
Exactly. So I trusted him with that, and he trusted me with making all the business decisions in terms of growth. And we never, like in the entire existence of our business, never stepped on each other's toes about him saying, Jeremy, I don't think this strategy is good. Or Josh, I don't think you're doing this right. Like we left each other alone. It was a really great partnership.
Wow, that's amazing. So as you're building this, did you build it coming from this, again, the SaaS background? Did you build this out? Did you say, hey, we're going to start this up, make a big impact, sell a lot of products, and then flip this? What was the intention? Because 5 years later, which you can tell us, you ended up getting an offer you couldn't refuse from another competitor in this industry. Yeah,
I'll tell you this. It's looking back, it's like so clear. Obviously, looking back of how it all happened, and when you're in the moment, it's so foggy. And I think a lot of people get into that fog and don't see their way out. And I can promise you, when you get through it, you'll look back and you'll realize everything makes sense. But after Vouch failed, that social networking company, I was lost. It's like you put everything into starting a business, and if it doesn't work out, it's an insanely depressing feeling. You spent years of your life. You deplete a lot of your life savings, at least in my case. I didn't have a lot of money left. I was close to 30, single. I was like, where do I begin? And I made the decision to get a job. Okay. Now, this job that I got.
Was your confidence shot at that point?
Oh,
Like,
totally.
was it
Totally.
just
Yes.
because you're coming off a successful sale?
I had a sale. Then I started the social networking app right after, raised millions of dollars for it, got hundreds of thousands of users, major celebrities, all these things, and it didn't work. It didn't take off to where it needed to be.
Oh, man.
And I'm feeling like what happened here? It's one of these things. It's just like you got it inherently. You got to get up and dust yourself off and start again. But it's not as easy said than done, right? People can always give that advice. Just you got to get back up, put your pants on.
Absolutely.
Not as easy. And I said to myself, I'm over being an entrepreneur right now. I'm exhausted. I need a job.
Wow.
I just need some stability. I don't want to be working on the weekends. I want to have a social life. I want to meet somebody, have a girlfriend one of these days. Like I got to do stuff because like I'm overworked and it's unhealthy. And so this is a crazy story. So I can't say the name of the company, but I got a job at a company, a startup, and it was a mobile app. I'll say that. And it was very small. It was like maybe 30-person company at the time. And I walk in and I interviewed for this job for 2 months. So I was like aimless for a couple of months, finally started applying for jobs, got this job. And I go to the co-working space on 18th Street in New York City. Okay. And I walk up to the third floor in this building, and I walk into the office, and it was the same exact office. I can't even say same office, the same room of where I started Vouch, the previous company that I failed at. The same room.
Man, okay? Come on. What's going through your head at this point?
So I sit down in the chair and I was like, this is God. Like what else is this? And I remember myself thinking, when I started Vouch 3 years ago, I had the most optimism. I had the most hope. I felt like on top of the world. I just came off of getting acquired by a publicly traded company. I'm starting this other business. I feel like I'm unstoppable. It was like this amazing time in my life, 27 years old, unstoppable, anything's possible. And now I'm just a regular employee working at a startup that I don't even necessarily believe in. And I'm like, wow, what the hell happened to me in 3 years? It was like the smack in the face. And I remember calling my dad and I said, Dad, I'm going to quit. This is the first 20 minutes of the first day. And I said to my dad in the bathroom, I got to quit. I got to get out of here. My dad's like, give it a day. Just get through the day.
Get till 5.
Get till 5. And I lasted another 15 minutes. And I went up to the CEO and I said, I feel like an asshole. This is not right for me. Nothing to do with you. I hope your business succeeds. It's not the right place for me. And I'm sorry that I wasted your time. I'm sorry that you probably chose me over other people. And I felt really guilty. And I quit within the first hour of my first day of having a job.
Wow. I mean, saying that, I'm also not surprised because when you've done that for that long, doing your own thing, there's no way you can walk in and take an employee's seat.
Yeah. And it all hit me at that point. I remember walking up and down New York City for hours aimlessly. Like I have no money. By the way, I had no money. So at that time I was like, am I a crazy person? I had a job. I have bills to pay. I have a life to,
it's heavy.
Now I have nothing. And 4 months later I started swag.com. So all these things kind of lead you to the right place, and you never know. I mean, sometimes you have to go with your gut or a feeling, and I didn't feel like that was right for me. And I felt like, maybe I should need a little more time, not working, or maybe just a little more time off before I started another thing. And that's it. So, just things healed, and I said, let me give it a shot and let me not make the same mistakes I made before. And, swag.com, we grew over 100% every year, went from first year, 350,000 to 1.1 million to 3 million to 7 million to 15 million to 30 million. Every year we kept growing, kept getting better. And honestly, to go back to your other question, I never thought of selling the business. It was never a thought. It was just, I'm having fun. It's like me and my co-founder, Josh, we're like, this is actually working. We're giving a great service to people. People are really liking what we're doing. And it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's fun. I can be creative. I can solve challenges. Even when COVID hit, I'm sure you're in the industry. COVID killed the industry. We went from 7 million. Everyone thought we were going to go down in COVID because it makes sense. No trade shows, no events, no offices. Sure. We went from 7 million to 15 million because we pivoted to inventory and individual distribution and all these things. And it was fun. I loved it. And then I got to a point where, and I think just what happened was we kept getting listed on the Inc. 500s 2 years in a row, and it got on the radar of a lot of companies. So we were reached out to probably close to 10 different major players in the promotional space, all within the same couple of months. And at that point,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, at that point, it was like, we never thought about selling. We were doing so well, but it's like, what are the odds that so many companies are reaching out to us at the exact same part? Like, we had Custom Ink, obviously, who ultimately acquired us, but we had another company who is not known to be in promo, but is a very big company, and it was like another adjacency. We had other companies who were kind of the same size as us who wanted to merge with us. We had other ones that were more agency model in the promo industry, doing hundreds of millions of dollars of sales, but they didn't have an e-commerce presence. Like, we had all these different people who wanted us, and we're like,
So attractive to so many companies.
Yeah.
So at that point, could you leverage that? Or, I mean, I know you, in hearing the stories, you picked Custom Ink because of the right partner, the right fit, values, you know, where things were going. But I got to assume you're also able to use that much attraction from a leverage standpoint to increase the value.
There was that, but it was more about what I was willing to sell for. You know, I mean, to me, it didn't really matter. If there was a price that somebody offered us, whether we could leverage them to get it, I wasn't going to sell under a certain price. So once I got to the price that I was
you had your value saying, I know that's it. This is what I'd walk away.
If it was literally $1 less, me and Josh were willing to walk away. We had a number in mind, and we said, this is the price we were willing to sell for. If we get below, we're not just going to do it. We didn't need to. I didn't need it at that point. We were making money. The business was growing. You know, I didn't really think about it, but we got to that number, and then we really evaluated. We did a deep look, and we said, well, Custom Ink, they're great people in the company. It really is such an interesting business because we never thought of them as a potential acquirer. I never thought of an acquirer, but when I start to think about it, I never thought of them because they're really more on the consumer side of the business. Sure. But when you really analyze it, it's like, okay, they're consumer, we're B2B. They're primarily apparel, we're primarily hard goods. So there was this inherent kind of connection. Like, we do inventory, they don't. We do boxes, they don't. Like, we're in the same industry, but we're going after completely different demographics, and we have a completely different strategy and a completely different tech offering. And it was just like, maybe 1 + 1 does equal 3. That was kind of mentality.
That's cool. I'm glad you guys found that fit. One last question on that is coming into it. At what point did you kind of find your swagger back and get your confidence as you're building up the new company?
Which company? Swag or Swag Space?
Yeah, Swag. Yeah, swag.com. Because, I mean, again, you go from a real low moment, figuring out what the heck am I going to do? And when did you finally get that confidence saying, like, not just that this is a thing that's viable, but, you know, I feel like I got it back?
Yeah, I'll tell you, interesting. In the first year, I always say this, and it's hard to believe, we didn't really think of ourselves as an e-commerce company at all. We didn't think that we were even going to be building an e-commerce business. The initial idea for swag.com was I was okay being one of the 23,000. I didn't have any major aspirations of being a multimillionaire. That wasn't on my bingo board. It wasn't. I was so burnt out by the ups and downs of entrepreneurship and then this failure and then working at a job and realizing it's not for me. I just wanted a little bit of stability and my mindset was $150,000 a year salary. That was my benchmark. That was it. I wanted that, and Josh wanted that. And let's just be sales reps. Let's just literally be sales reps and
create something fun with some stability,
with some friends, and have fun with it, and have a cool brand, and then build. And maybe one day we'll get up to 300,000 a year or 500,000. And that was the mentality. Like, this could be something. We don't have to over worry about things. We don't have to raise VC. We don't have to deal with any of the nonsense that I dealt with in the past. I was trying to avoid that. I didn't want to deal with the stress of that, of losing people's money. That wasn't my mentality. But then while we were doing it, and we realized we're actually pretty good at selling, there were so many obvious things that we could make the process better. It wasn't even for anybody else, it's for ourselves. Like, even quoting, it took us so long to quote things out. And then when the customer said, hey, I want 1 color versus 3 color, can you put in 2 different print locations versus, it was so annoying to keep going back to the drawing board and keep looking at the thing. Like, wouldn't it be great if we just had a simple calculator? So, like, we built a calculator first, and then we built this, and we're like, we should just build a better site and just make it so easy for people to upload their logo. We detect the colors in the logo. We figure out the Pantone matches. Let's do it all and streamline it from A to B. And then, like, in month 8 of the first year, we started to really go into the tech side. But the first 8 months, it was really, that wasn't even on our radar.
It's incredible. And to I think outside this industry, people don't realize, like, how successful and crazy those numbers are in such a short time to, build to 30+ million in such a small window. So congrats again to you and your team to, building something really special.
Thank you.
I want to talk about, I know we got about 5-6 minutes left here, but I want to talk about 2 things for you, faith and family. or
Mhm.
spirituality and family. Tell me about how big and important those are in your life.
Yeah, I mean, as I go back to that story about, being in that room and realizing it's honestly probably God telling me, get out of this room and start something.
Yeah,
I'm very connected to it. And I'm not like the most religious person. I would say I grew up religious, modern Orthodox Jewish, but I do feel a connection. I feel like timing, things happen for a reason, and not always don't things don't always work out great for a reason. Not like, oh, it's always gonna be successful as an entrepreneur.
sure.
It's not true. There's ups and downs, but there's always a lesson in it, and there's always a reason for it, and it makes you better. Even the losses make you better. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs who fail, because most entrepreneurs fail, in their history. A lot of entrepreneurs fail, and they don't kind of appreciate the lessons that are in that failure, and then they fail again. They fail again. They don't realize why they're never having the success. Like, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've never had my breakthrough. And to me, there is this thing of really being introspective and taking it in and being okay. Like, it's okay to fail. Like, no one's perfect, but you really have to learn from it, and realize why you failed and how you can improve it. And obviously, family to me is everything. I have a very close to my dad and my mom. I used to live in New Jersey, right before we got acquired, and I would walk with my dad every single day. Like, literally every morning, we would take an hour walk and we would talk about life and
Wow, that's
business, and
so cool.
it was amazing. And now I do feel regret because I moved to Florida and we don't have those things. And we talk all the time, and he comes and visits, and I go there and visit, but it's not the same. But I felt like Florida was the right place for my family. I have a wife, I have two kids. My wife's pregnant with our third. So we have a big household growing.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's just, Florida is such an amazing place for kids, to grow up. The weather, the energy, we live right on the beach. It's just like completely
Where in
different.
Florida are you?
I live in a place called Bell Harbor, Miami.
Okay,
So
awesome.
it's like this couple of blocks. Like, it's from, I guess, 96th Street to 104th Street. It's like an 8-block area. It's called Bell Harbor. But it's very quiet. We live on the beach. It's like suburban, but it's walkable to, some restaurants, but it's like a vacation town vibe. And, I love it. It's a healthy lifestyle. And, I don't work to live. I have this mentality of, I like to work because it's fun for me and I
Yeah,
enjoy it and I like the challenges. And when there's things going wrong, or things are like a problem, I like being the one to solve it. It's not about the money. And I was saying to you right before the call, like, being an entrepreneur, you're kind of benchmarked against, how much money you have, because that's just like the pot, the gold at the end of the thing. Like, if you're a doctor, you're benchmarked by how many babies you deliver or how many lives you've saved, and that's your kind of winning. With entrepreneurship, it's about how much money. But my goal is not the money; it's more about the solving of the problems and the building of things. So, once I do leave swag.com or swag space, we could talk about that quickly. I sure I'll start something else, and hopefully it's a success, but it might not be, and I'm okay with that.
yeah, amazing attitude. Yeah, and I love how you look at the world and how you look at this. Is the thing that resonated too is impact, right? It's the money, the solving problems, but that has huge impact on on staff and jobs you create, and for Swag.com and impacting the industry and how buyers look at it. And that's incredible. The before we get to finish up with Swag Space, but what are the most important values that you want your kids to grow up with and talk about in their later years?
Yeah, I want them to be good people. I have this thing. It's actually funny. On the side, I'm starting a mobile app. It's not necessarily a business, I don't think yet. It's a charity app. It's a giving app. And it's actually funny. I have this app on my phone, and every day I give a little bit with my kids. It's like you press a button and it gives some coins to a
Oh,
charity.
that's cool.
They could shake it. And now if we miss a day, they're coming up to me. My daughter's 4 years old. She's like, Abba, we didn't. She calls me Abba because my wife's Israeli. She's like, Abba, we didn't give tzedakah today, which is charity. And that's good. I think it makes people better. I think not even the people you're giving it to helps. It helps the people giving and puts you in a
Sure.
right mindset.
Creating that habit.
She knows what she's giving for, and she talks about it. And I ask her, well, why do we give? And she goes through it to help people. And, like, I don't know, you want to, however successful or not successful they'll be financially. I mean, I think the biggest thing for parents is you want your kids to be good kids and good people in society and be helpful to other people. So that's what I'm prioritizing.
That's awesome. I think the time you're getting to that now too. I mean, again, I can appreciate that first decade going, burnout point, right? It's 90, 80, 100 hours, whatever you're doing. But sounds like you've taken a a step back, slowed things down a bit, and you're really enjoying fatherhood, and
Mhm.
looks good on you. I love again what you've done. You're an inspirational entrepreneur. Specifically the work in our industry. Again, it's game changing. When you and I first talked, I'm like, 50% frightened and the other 50% absolutely engaged and excited. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for making the time to be on here. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure spending the time with you and getting to know you. So we'll keep following your journey. And again, thanks for the time today, Jeremy.
Thanks, Chris. Great to be here and great connecting.
Yeah, you too. Okay, buddy. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.